Bloomberg Audio Studios. Podcasts, radio, news.
You're listening to Bloomberg Businessweek with Carol Massar and Tim Stenovec on Bloomberg Radio.
Time now for the Businessweek Women in Leadership segment, brought to you by Visa and Visa Foundation, connecting small businesses to the digital economy. Today, and especially International Women's Day, they are committed to uplifting small businesses for growth.
Well, quite a few of the companies that Pivotal Ventures has invested in are familiar to our viewers and listeners. Ellevest and Little Otter, to name just a couple. Those founders and CEOs have been on our air. Other investments include Hugh, Founders First Capital Partners, Millie, Mon Ami, Summer Health, and more. Pivotal Ventures was founded nearly a decade ago by Melinda French Gates, and it seeks to, in its own words, quote, accelerate social progress through high-impact investments, philanthropy, partnerships, and advocacy. The company's also invested in nearly 24 funds. We've got with us Erin Harkless Moore, Senior Director of Investments at Pivotal Ventures. She joins us from Washington, D.C. Erin, when you're looking out over the investment landscape, what are the boxes that the companies or the funds you want to invest in or you are looking to invest in? What are the boxes they have to check?
Tim, Carol, thanks for having me on today. It's great to be with you. We're excited about this market opportunity that we see in investing in innovators that are building the next generation of companies that are tackling some of the biggest challenges facing our society in caregiving and women's health and mental health. So we want to see founders that have lived experience in building in the areas that they're targeting and that are taking advantage of huge market opportunities. Our strategy at Pivotal is to invest in both funds and directly into startups that are, again, innovating in what they're doing. And so we're looking for founders that are going to bring game-changing technologies to the table and also backing the investors that are going to capitalize them as well.
Erin, we love size and scope here at Bloomberg. Give me an idea of how much stuff gets pitched to you, how much comes across your desk, whether it's a startup or a fund that says, help. We're doing something good, but we need either some funding or some assistance to even, increase our impact.
Sure. Our pipeline is very robust, and I think it's a hallmark of our strategy that we try to do a couple of things differently. One, we're accessible. We don't need a warm intro. So if founders can find us, on LinkedIn, at conferences, at events, we're happy to take those meetings and get to know them and what they're trying to build. We also want to invest early when we can. Typically for fund managers on that side of the table, we'll focus a lot on emerging managers, those that are often first-time funds, and I actually like to think of them in a different frame as next-generation managers that are finding new patterns and new types of founders and innovations that they can back. So our pipeline is robust, and we're excited to be deploying capital in this market environment.
Well, how would you describe the market environment right now? Because so much of what we talk about is about investment in AI. I mean, there's even a headline from our Bloomberg News team today. Anthropic finalizes $3.5 billion funding round at a $61.5 billion valuation. Do you feel like you're missing out at all because of a lack of AI investments right now?
Not at all. We are investing in AI. Our fund managers are. You mentioned Little Otter as well at the top of the introduction. One of our newer investments. They raised a little over $9 million to continue to bring AI into their behavioral health and mental health platform to support children and families and caregivers. And so, AI is present in our strategy and the funds and the companies that we're investing in. And we think AI is essential to modernize our healthcare system, our caregiving infrastructure, foundational industries like manufacturing and supply chain, wealth tech. It's showing up across our fund portfolio and directly in some of the companies we're backing. So it's important and something that we're spending a lot of time in at Pivotal Ventures.
Yeah, I should note Rebecca Egger, the co-founder and CEO of Little Otter, was on our program. That was back on Valentine's Day, Carol, so just a little over a week ago.
It was a great conversation. Excellent. Yeah, it was a really rewarding conversation. I feel like eye-opening for all of us. I am curious too about the caregiving component that you guys are investing in. I feel like that comes up more and more in terms of, if it's a book on like how to lead, how to manage, how to move ahead, you got to think about the caregiving component in your personal life, but also of society at large. Talk to us about how you approach caregiving and what you see as the biggest kind of struggles that we need to really invest in and overcome.
Sure. I want to pause. Friday was National Caregivers Day. So just to give a shout out to all the caregivers, we're all caregivers at some point in our lives, whether you're caring for young people, the aging, your own family members, your spouse, a friend, a neighbor. We've supported some research at Pivotal Ventures that size the care economy as a $648 billion market. That's huge. It's actually bigger than the pharmaceutical industry. And we need that modern caregiving system to support women and families and all of us to be able to, do our work and be productive and active, contributors to society. So, we think that those investments in those systems, whether it be from childcare all the way through to tools to optimize the home and caregiving in the home, to the elder care space and in the aging side of the spectrum, all are huge opportunities. We have funds and companies in our portfolio that we're tracking that are innovating in those spaces. And we think it's a big market, and others should be paying attention and deploying capital there as well.
Where do the funds of funds come in here versus the direct investments? Like, how do you think of when to make an investment in a company versus when to deploy capital to a fund of funds?
Yeah, both are pillars of our strategy. Our portfolio of fund investments is essential to changing the face of our investment ecosystem and the venture capital sector in particular. There's been some data, PitchBook has put out and others, about 17% of decision makers at U.S. venture capital firms right now are women. That number has almost doubled in the last decade, but we still have a long way to go. And so as part of our strategy, we think it's incredibly important to back these women investors who are deploying capital and finding great founders in every sector, whether that be supply chain and manufacturing, as I mentioned, and the tech that's innovating there, to digital health, to the consumer space. We want to find women leaders and investors of all stripes that are deploying capital across those sectors. And our direct investing strategy is complements that. It's not really an either or. I think it's a both and we see opportunities again in this care economy thesis, women's health as well, maternal health, menopause, and care around those themes is a huge opportunity. So, with our direct investing, we try to flex and focus on areas that are aligned, back to our broader mission at Pivotal to get more power to more people, especially women.
I did mention the Pivotal Ventures was founded close to a decade ago by Melinda French Gates. Just clear something up for us. Is there other money in there right now, or is this all money from Melinda French Gates? Do you have other LPs?
It's all capital solely from Melinda. She started Pivotal about a decade ago in 2015, really with a mission to advance social progress and advance women's power and influence, get more power, as I said before, to more people. And one thing that was innovative when Melinda set this up was this idea that you need multiple tools to advance this objective and to see, our mission. And that includes philanthropy. That also includes the investing and the investment capital that we're deploying.
Do you think that gives you more leeway in terms of timing? There's not as much pressure for returns over a certain period of time. Do you think it changes your investment strategy because there is this patient capital?
Our strategy is long-term, as you note, and I do agree that having that ability to see the full picture and deploy multiple tools in our toolkit as a platform is huge to driving our mission and the type of change that we want to see in the world. But let me be clear, this is a strategy that is centered on achieving best-in-class financial return by investing in these funds and some of the themes that we've discussed, like care economy and women's health and AI. We think there's a great potential to deliver, best-in-class market rate returns again over the long term. But we do have that patience with our founder alongside us to do just that.
Erin, do you feel like the establishment, the financial establishment, especially when it comes to women founders and funders, are still kind of forgotten and overlooked?
it's easy to stick with the patterns that one knows. I've been investing in funds and for close to 2 decades now, I think that it's no one gets fired for sort of following the same playbook. What excites me about what we're doing at Pivotal Ventures is we're recasting a different playbook that I think will show other investors and other stakeholders in the financial ecosystem and the investment industry that there is real value to be had by bringing different perspectives to the table, looking at opportunities like this care economy that are huge. Again, $648 billion market. That's the type of paradigm shifting we want to see. And it comes back to having that patience and time horizon to play it out and being long-term focused.
What is your time horizon for an investment?
It's a typical, I'd say, early stage investor timeline. We're deploying capital year over year, and on our funds, they're typical venture early stage funds that will be investing over a 3 to 4 year time period and then harvesting the gains beyond that. So it's a long time horizon. I'd say decade plus that we're really looking to drive the results that we want to see both in our funds and with our companies. If they return capital sooner, that's great, but not at the sacrifice for building, I think, an enduring platform as a fund manager or a business as a founder.
All right, we have to leave it there. Erin, so glad we could get some time with you once again. Erin Harkless Moore, she's Senior Director of Investments for Pivotal Ventures, joining us on this Monday from Washington, D.C. Erin, be well.
PepsiCo among the latest companies to dial back its DEI programs as President Trump's push to purge DEI ripples throughout corporate America. Companies from Amazon to Walmart have announced changes to their DEI programs in recent months as activists ramped up pressure against diversity initiatives. The trend accelerated under Trump, whose administration threatened to pursue criminal investigations against companies with, quote, illegal DEI. Somebody who's been watching this really closely is Katina Sawyer. She's vice chair of the DEI Committee at the University of Arizona. She's also the author of Leading for Wellness, How to Create a Team Culture Where Everyone Thrives. She joins us this afternoon from Tucson. Katina, good to have you with us. I got to say, I think a lot of people would be surprised that the DEI Committee at the University of Arizona still exists. I mean, this is a university that gets federal funding. Is there concern there that it has to shut down?
Well, I think that a lot of institutions, especially those that receive federal funding, are carefully reviewing their strategy in this space. And that's certainly true here, too. While we don't have any definitive answers at this point in time, we do know that, these EOs have really reverberated through both academic institutions and other institutions that are federally funded in ways that I think create some anxiety for people who care deeply about these issues and are certainly, impacting our day-to-day in terms of waiting for guidance on how to move forward effectively.
Are you concerned that the university will be breaking the law at any point?
I mean, I think that legal risk is always a concern. And I think part of the challenge of, grappling with executive orders is that it's unclear exactly, what the parameters of compliance look like, right? And so, currently there are judges who are fighting back to block some of these EOs, and really, it's unclear the extent to which those will be successful. I think the ambiguity in terms of the implications and the also, what compliance actually looks like and how to execute on these EOs remains somewhat in question from similar institutions.
Katina, how much debate have you guys had internally about this issue, about what to do about it? Obviously, you've chosen to keep it for the moment, and also whether you've had discussions about, all right, even if we hold on to it, let's be quiet about it.
I think there are,
although you are going on public, national, global radio and YouTube, so you are not being completely mum. So go ahead.
Well, what I would say is that I think that, there are lots of conversations going on in this space, in the education space more broadly. I am hearing a lot of faculty across universities trying to understand how this has implications for their teaching, their research, as well as for, policies within the institution. I'm also hearing, not just in federally funded organizations, but through our work at Worker Being, we're hearing a lot of companies trying to grapple with what is necessary, how can we How can we continue to maintain our commitment to the well-being and health and happiness of all of our employees, and still, make sure that we're not creating legal risk for our employees or for our organizations? And so I think that these kinds of conversations are certainly commonplace in organizations. And part of it is just, even organizations that want to maintain their commitments to DEI are also grappling with these ideas around, how do we do that, but remain within the realm of what is legally possible.
Do you think that the companies that are pulling back on DEI, I mentioned Amazon and Walmart, PepsiCo, I mean, the list is at this point just dozens of companies. Deere is one of them. Do you think they're making a mistake?
Yeah, so I think that anytime a company makes a promise or a commitment to a value and backtracks, what the research would show is that employees are going to more broadly be upset by that. Justice and equity perceptions, as well as perceptions that the company is actually telling the truth when it tells you what it values or puts value statements out there, are things that employees don't take lightly. People identify with their organizations. They see themselves as an extension of the organization, and these values are important. When companies start to flip-flop on their values or pull back on things that they had previously committed to, it starts to put questions in minds of employees, even those who may not have a particular stake in the DEI space, about, well, what's next? What other value might they roll back on? It creates some concern about consistency of ethics in the organization, as well as consistency and morality. And that actually is more widespread than just DEI and just maybe concerns that minority or underrepresented employees might have. Those perceptions actually start to taint the views of employees more broadly.
Do you think it's wise for CEOs to court President Trump and meet with him and appear to be or say they are willing to kind of play by the rules that are being set by these executive orders, and then kind of still go do their own thing? Do you feel like that's kind of what going on? Okay, I'm going to say something, but I understand what's important to my employee base, or what's been important to our company culture perhaps for the last few years, and really don't want to change anything. But I think, is it wise for companies, especially if they're publicly held entities, to in some ways court the White House?
I think it's wise for companies to make educated decisions about how they move forward. Some of that may be gaining information from higher level sources, right, about what is expected and how they might move forward with the path of least resistance, right? And what actually is that resistance, and what are real threats versus what, is an imagined threat that might not come true. So I think information gathering and also, banking some goodwill is generally a good strategy. However, I also think that, companies need to understand what they stand for in the long term. If you start to be seen as a company that's just a weather vane, right, along with the whims of a particular party, of any party, right, that you can start to create in your mind some doubts of the stakeholders that keep you in business, like employees and customers, of what you actually stand for and what the value is that you believe you bring in differentiation to competitors. So I think it's a tricky balance, right, of trying to really understand, well, what is the reality that we're living in, and how do I navigate that reality using that information as best as possible, and also making sure that you're staying consistent and true to who you are as a company and what people have come to expect you to be.
Just 30 seconds. Can the free market solve this if companies aren't going to come out and say this? If indeed, the policies that companies put in place for DEI, it's good for business. Just 30 seconds. Can this be solved by the private market?
I mean, there's a lot of data to show that consumers give their dollars to, and employees stick around longer in companies that they feel align with their values. And so if you have a customer base who liked what you were doing before from a DEI perspective, the likelihood that you may, and we're seeing some people voting with their feet now, experience some reverberations from that in a negative direction if you change directions on this, I think that's a real threat. And perhaps the free market will decide who they want to give their dollars to.
All right, we're going to leave it there. Katina, thank you so much. Katina Sawyer, Vice Chair of the DEI Committee at University of Arizona, also author of Leading for Wellness, How to Create a Team Culture Where Everyone Thrives. This is Bloomberg.